Hello everyone, in this video we will focus on listening to the English language. Try to listen more than once until you understand each sentence. Click on the subtitles, CC option to display all available subtitles for the video. Start playing the video and click the CC button at the bottom of the video player.
The Dark Flower by John Galsworthy, Section 1. He walked along Holywell that afternoon of early June, with his short gown drooping down his arms and no cap on his thick, dark hair. A youth of middle height, and built as if he had come of two very different strains, one sturdy, the other wiry and light. His face, too, was a curious blend, for though it was strongly formed, its expression was rather soft and moody. His eyes, dark, gray, with a good deal of light in them and very black lashes, had a way of looking beyond what they saw, so that he did not seem always to be quite present. But his smile was exceedingly swift, uncovering teeth as white as a Negro's, and giving his face a peculiar eagerness. People stared at him a little as he passed, since in 1880 he was before his time in not wearing a cap. Women especially were interested. They perceived that he took no notice of them, seeming rather to be looking into distance and making combinations in his soul. Did he know of what he was thinking? Did he ever know quite definitely at that time of his life, when things, especially those beyond the immediate horizon, were so curious and interesting? The things he was going to see and do when he had got through Oxford, where everybody was awfully decent to him and all right, of course, but not so very interesting. He was on his way to his tutor's to read an essay on Oliver Cromwell, and under the old wall, which had once hedged in the town, he took out of his pocket a beast. It was a small tortoise, and with an extreme absorption he watched it move its little inquiring head, feeling it all the time with his short, broad fingers, as though to discover exactly how it was made. It was mighty hard in the back. No wonder poor old Aeschylus felt a bit sick when it fell on his head. The ancients used it to stand the world on, a pagoda world, perhaps, of men and beasts and trees, like that carving on his guardian's Chinese cabinet. The Chinese made jolly beasts and trees, as if they believed in everything having a soul, and not only being just fit for people to eat or drive or make houses of. If only the art school would let him model things on his own, instead of copying and copying. It was just as if they imagined it would be dangerous to let you think out anything for yourself. He held the tortoise to his waistcoat and let it crawl till, noticing it was gnawing the corner of his essay, he put it back into his pocket. What would his tutor do if he were to know it was there? Cock his head a little to the one side and say, "Ah, there are things, Lennon, not dreamed of in my philosophy." Yes, there were good many not dreamed of by old Stormer, who seemed so awfully afraid of anything that wasn't usual, who seemed always laughing at you for fear that you should laugh at him. There were lots of people in Oxford like that. It was stupid. You couldn't do anything decent if you were afraid of being laughed at. Mrs. Stormer wasn't like that. She did things because they came into her head. But then, of course, she was Austrian, not English, and ever so much younger than old Stormer. And having reached the door of his tutor's house, he rang the bell. End of Section 1. The Dark Flower by John Galsworthy, Section 2. When Anna Stormer came into the study, she found her husband standing at the window with his head a little on one side, a tall, long-legged figure in clothes of a pleasant tweed, and wearing a low, turn-over collar, not common in those days, and a blue silk tie, which she had knitted, strung through a ring. He was humming and gently tapping the window-pane with his well-kept fingernails. Though celebrated for the amount of work he got through, she never caught him doing any in this house of theirs, chosen because it was more than a half a mile away from the college, which held the dear young clowns, as he called them, of whom he was tutor. He did not turn. It was not, of course, his habit to notice what was not absolutely necessary, but she felt that he was aware of her. She came to the window seat and sat down. He looked round at that and said, "Ah." It was a murmur almost of admiration, not usual from him, since, with the exception of certain portions of the classics, it was hardly his custom to admire. But she knew that she was looking her best sitting there, her really beautiful figure poised, the sun shining on her brown hair and brightening her deep-set ice-green eyes under their black lashes. It was sometimes a great comfort to her that she remained so good-looking. It would have been an added vexation indeed to have felt that she ruffled her husband's fastidiousness. Even so, her cheekbones were too high for his taste, symbols of that something in her character which did not go with his, the dash of desperation, of vividness, that lack of a certain English smoothness which always annoyed him. "Harold," she would never quite flatten her R's, "I want to go to the mountains this year." The mountains! She had not seen them since that season at San Martino di Castrosa 12 years ago, which had ended in her marrying him. Nostalgia! "I don't know what that means. I am homesick. Can we go?" "If you like, why not? But no leading up the Cimone della Pala for me." She knew what he meant by that. No romance. How splendidly he had led that day. She almost worshipped him. What blindness! What distortion! Was it really the same man, standing there with those bright, doubting eyes, with gray already in his hair? Yes, romance was over, and she sat silent, looking out into the street, that little old street into which she looked day and night. A figure passed out there, came to the door and rang. She said softly, "Here is Mark Lennon." She felt her husband's eyes rest on her for just a moment, knew that he had turned, heard him murmur, "Ah, the angel clown." And, quite still, she waited for the door to open. There was the boy, with his blessed dark head, and his shy, gentle gravity, and his essay in his hand. "Well, Lennon, how's old Noll? Hypocrite of genius, eh? Drop! Let's get him over." Motionless from her seat at the window, she watched those two figures at the table, the boy reading in his queer, velvety bass voice, her husband leaning back with the tips of his fingers pressed together, his head a little on one side, and that faint, satiric smile which never reached his eyes. Yes, he was dozing, falling asleep, and the boy, not seeing, was going on. Then he came to the end and glanced up. What eyes he had! Other boys would have laughed, but he looked almost sorry. She heard him murmur, "I'm awfully sorry, sir." "Ah, Lennon, you caught me. Fact is, terms fagged me out. We're going to the mountains. Ever been to the mountains?" "What? Never?" "You should come with us, eh? What do you say, Anna? Don't you think this young man ought to come with us?" She got up and stood staring at them both. Had she heard aright? Then she answered very gravely, "Yes, I think he ought." "Good. We'll get him to lead up the Cimone della Pala." End of section 2.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel.